Okay, welcome everyone. We are here recording a video about the markets, and I'm here with Maksim as we go over many of the details we've seen throughout the week to understand exactly what's going on in the markets, where we're going to go next, what's all the latest on the tariffs, and how is crypto specifically reacting to it. Brother Maksim, first and foremost, how are you doing?
Welcome everyone. Yeah, it's a unusual note in life. Still, welcome everyone. Yeah, doing well. Thanks. Nice to hear you. Mm, yeah. If even tariffs, tariffs, you mentioned tariffs. Yes, it was a major narrative or topic, but we need to always keep a little bit more abstract on a higher level. It can change. Sometimes tariffs on our US treasuries. God knows what will be the next trade war with China. It like keep changing. The major topic is separation of economies or trying to protect yourself, which is a long-term process. Probably will take years. Doesn't look like there is way back. That everyone is happy with each other, cooperate and building together. No, this time is over. So, which brings risks and opportunities. So we'll try to cover things as it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I do think this can be a very long-term reality for the world. And China, as the latest news, upped their tariffs for US goods to 125%. So we're certainly not moving in the right direction. We're getting more heated in this tariff war between the two countries. And it's become a little more of a US versus China thing than US versus the world thing, since obviously the US has put a 90-day pause on the rest of the world, excluding a
Yeah.
little higher for Canada and Mexico. But regardless, it's an interesting situation. It certainly has had an impact, well documented since Trump first made the announcement back on April 2nd. And where we are now is kind of this confusing landscape of when will there be a resolution? How much does it still matter? Is crypto really that impacted? So, one thing I wanted to talk about is the World Liberty Financial Wallet, which is associated with the US government and the Trump family, and of course, can be considered a pretty good reflection of how they are viewing cryptocurrency. And, this is something that I think is a very good signal right now, uh, and is telling in terms of, if there is any sort of insider plans for those who believe there's a bit of a conspiracy going on with these tariffs being a function for the wealthy to get richer or the Trump family themselves to get richer. I understand the arguments here, but this is a pretty good reflection of how they feel the economy is going to go over the coming days, weeks, or months. And right now, the balance of their top four holdings has gone essentially unchanged, other than a big jump in USD coin holdings. So we checked the timing on this, and it looks like on the 4th, which was 1 week ago, 2 days after the tariffs were announced, there was this huge influx of USD coin going from 1.19 million USDC all the way up to now, or temporarily 26.19. So they added on essentially $25 million worth of stable coins. Then they dropped just a tiny bit here on the 10th, which was yesterday. So other than the USD coin holdings, wrapped Bitcoin and Tether and Ethereum have all remained the same. That's what these brown, blue, and yellow colors are. In fact, there was a small dip, very small, looks like around $200,000 dropping on April 3rd, which was also after the tariff announcement was made. So the only thing that's changed is there's a lot more dry powder in this wallet, and it looks like they're waiting for the right time to potentially convert that dry powder into more wrapped Bitcoin or Ethereum, most likely, based on the patterns
Mhm.
we've seen. And I think this is actually a good sign that there's not some expectation for crypto to drop off from the government themselves. What do you think, Maksim?
Yeah, it's a interesting observation. Yeah, interesting observation. Of course, they might be wrong. They might be buying the top. We'll see. We'll see. It was
Yeah.
interesting when we saw that they increased stable coin holding shortly before the drop. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean they've kind of fluctuated quite a bit. I wanted to add the Bitcoin price here. Make sure we have that. Make sure no other prices are showing. Okay, so this is wrapped Bitcoin, how much they're holding. They actually added on a bunch during the first week of March, and the price has gone obviously down since the inauguration day on January 20th. But looking for patterns, we see that the USD coin balance did drop a lot on March 5th, and Bitcoin's price and all of crypto dropped immediately right after. So there could be something there. At the same time, you can see how they were adding on a lot of crypto here going into the inauguration. But
Yeah.
recently, other than this add-on that happened about 8 days ago, there really hasn't been any activity.
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah, we're going to keep an eye on this. I think it's a very important signal to watch right now. And yes, I'm sure there are plenty of other crypto wallets that aren't public or we simply don't know of that might have some other alpha. And we're going to look into that over the next couple of weeks here so we can track as many Trump influenced wallets as possible for obvious reasons. Moving on, just talking about some price performances here. Bitcoin actually is up about 11.3% compared to a week ago. That was when we were obviously bottoming out as the tariff news was really impacting and wrecking the markets. And we saw Bitcoin get down to a little over 74K. So this is a little misleading because it's measuring versus the local bottom. Ethereum up pretty big actually at 17.8% because it was way down in the 1200s, I believe. XRP, lots of big green squares coming in here. But there are also plenty of altcoins that got pretty crushed. If this is, I'm sorry, wow, my mistake. This is actually social volume, so let me fix that really quick. Okay, I'm going to cut out that last part. Thank God it's a pre-recorded video. Bitcoin is only up about 0.8%, so it's been pretty flat over the past week. Tether, Ethereum actually down pretty significantly, down 13% as it continues to feel the pain. Lido staked Ethereum, another notable one that's dropped. But for the most part, we've been pretty flat in crypto, Maksim, over the past week. And the overall market cap has declined by about 4.8% as the world continues to react to this tariff news here. Do you have any main considerations in terms of how much crypto is at the mercy of the stock markets right now? Or should we still consider them to be very correlated?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, it's now quite a correlation still. But we should probably see some decoupling in the latest few weeks. You remember there was a talk. Also, we had the narrative decoupling. It means crowd believed now a decoupling. I think it was last week. We even mentioned it.
Right.
And it's quite often it's not that majority is wrong, but the timing is very wrong. So we might see. Let's give it a second chance for decoupling to take place. Maybe next week, maybe in 2 weeks. Yeah, we can look into it. Yeah, possible. Just not at the moment when everyone expect to talk about it. So it never happens at the moment the majority expect. Well, it might happen later when the majority forgets about it, and there is another narrative, and then it comes. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, one thing about crypto is one day in crypto is not the same as one day in the stock market. I think crypto tends to move much more quickly. It's on a 24-hour cycle. The further that time goes on, uh, the more people tend to forget about, how much tariffs should impact crypto, and therefore they don't impact crypto as much. Of course, that's with the assumption that nothing changes, and there's always some sort of development that seems to be going on with these tariffs. The latest one, obviously, being China upping their own tariffs to 125% against the United States. But we'll see if there's not really much that happens now throughout the rest of April, then by the end of the month or early May, we could see a pretty obvious separation that theoretically should benefit cryptocurrencies. Another thing I wanted to talk about with you, Maksim, is the sentiment between all the positive comments and all the negative comments across social media. And it's actually quite positive right now. It makes sense. We've actually rebounded from this bottom on April 10th by almost 5%, with Bitcoin now at about 82.5K. So the trading community's gotten pretty optimistic here and seems to be believers that crypto can start to rally. And that's a bit of a concern, right, Maksim?
Yeah, but it's not extreme yet. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's certainly not at.
Sometimes when it's extreme, I mean, of course, kind of relief, go away from pain, thinking about, yeah, I can understand it. But concerning will be, actually, we do have concerns like Fartcoin is pumping, yeah.
Yes.
That's suspicious, but if together with Fartcoin, 5 other meme coins are pumping, okay. Actually, I didn't check. Do we have a category of meme coins?
Yeah, we have a meme coin watch list. I made it maybe 6 months ago. Let me check that out.
Yeah.
There it is. So, yep, Fartcoin at number 7 right now. It's hard to say that word seriously, but yeah, they're up another 22.8% today.
Okay. Yeah, I see. So Bonk is doing well. Pepe is also, but Shiba, Bitcoin, okay, Shiba Inu. Yeah, okay, it's a bit concerning indeed.
Yeah, here's the 1-day chart. We can see that Popcat.
Take 1 week, we will compare to the way we started with crypto in general performance.
Okay. Yep, so Fartcoin is just about doubled over the past week.
Yeah, and the other green spots are?
We got Shiba, Bitcoin,
Bitcoin, okay.
Loose, and $1 billion cat.
So it's not so critical. On average, you see that it's, but even though the others around 20%, I think, is it Floki or what? Or Popcat? Popcat. The third from the left, quite big green bar.
This one here?
No, next one, 2 is Fartcoin, and then the third one?
This is Popcat, yeah.
Okay, this is quite a big one. And then there are a few others also big one, yeah?
Yeah, we've got Osaka Protocol up 31%, Vine up 20%, Kekius Maximus up 23%, and then we have Loose at 68%, Retardio at 21%, and $1 billion cat at plus 82%.
Yeah, I agree. It starts getting a little bit concerning. Quite sizable gains. Image points, which is not supposed to be on the bottom. Okay. But what do we know about the current market?
Yeah. One thing we can check is the social volume between top meme coins versus layer 1s and 2s. Yeah, it's actually, the meme coin social volume is quite low, at least looking at the top 6. So we're just looking at Doge, Shiba, Pepe, WIF, Bonk, and Floki. And these, I understand there's been a little shuffling, so these aren't exactly the top 6 anymore, but it won't look much different even if I update it to the current top 6. Social volume on meme coins is definitely low, while Bitcoin, yeah, layer 1s and layer 2s are definitely the ones getting the rises in discussion right now. And I had the trending tokens pulled up as well, so we can see which ones are actually standing out at the moment. And it was a bunch of top caps. Yeah, it's still Bitcoin by far at the top, with Ethereum right below, Solana at number 4, Chainlink at number 6. Lots of big top cap assets right now, and no real meme coins to be seen other than Baby, I believe, which is Babylon. But yeah, I mean, from a price perspective, that does seem to be where the money's flowing. Meme coins are getting a lot of market cap pumps, while Bitcoin is mostly staying in this ongoing range. Now, if it does, jump below 80, jump above 85K again, that could be a very good sign, because that's been a psychological resistance level for a lot of people. Other things to talk about, the smart money, Maxim, we do see that the wallets holding 10 or more Bitcoin continue to rise, while the wallets specifically holding between 10 to 10,000, which is a little more of a chunk of real human traders without getting into all the exchange wallets, that's been more flat. And that's where prices have been mostly correlated with. You can see they really dropped during this third week of February, stayed flat here, recovered a bit, and prices were really following it. And it's fading just slightly over the past week. Yeah, they've dropped about 10,630 BTC over the past week, so not quite ideal yet. We'd like to see this darker green line rise as a good signal for prices to begin rebounding, but we're not there quite yet.
True.
On-chain wise, transaction volume continues to struggle a bit. We're seeing a little less utility overall. From a daily active address perspective, staying kind of flat at the moment. Circulation a little bit on the downside, and network growth actually looking somewhat encouraging. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. I see the active address decline as a bit of a concern, and the transaction volume drop as a bit of a concern. But MVRV wise, we still sit right at about even. 30-day returns at about negative 2.6, or negative 0.8, and 365-day at negative 2.6. Funding rates are something I definitely recommend watching closely. Zooming in, we do see this Binance short signal. In fact, this is the largest level of shorting toward Bitcoin since March 27th. So a little bit of a 2-week milestone here that actually is a good sign. So people betting against Bitcoin at this rate usually can indicate that some short liquidations can come in and bolster prices if they're liquidated. So very worth watching here going into the weekend.
So probably how it looks like now, it's likely Bitcoin, maybe even Ethereum will break recent highs. For Bitcoin 83, 84, and then then we should reconsider going down. Yeah, probably for now it will go up.
Yeah,
if even there are worrying signs about this meme coins, but I agree with you. There is still enough bearishness and shorting here and there, and you can see that people still short on the decentralized exchanges. Yeah, maybe they have to be a little bit punished.
Yeah, it seems like the community, at least the people that are putting in perpetual contracts right now, they're not believers in this mini rally, this 5% jump that we've seen. So I would be optimistic about that, considering their short money can easily get injected into a further rally right now if liquidated. So good sign there. Whales are not overly active or inactive. They're staying within their range. We've talked about what the smart money's doing. Mean dollar invested age, I'm continuing to watch for any drops, but so far nothing. It's continuing to rise over time, indicating that dormant coins are staying dormant here, Maksim. And age consumed is pretty middle of the road as well.
Yeah.
This is one that I know you put a lot of credibility into, the network realized profit loss metric, which is showing more losses lately than profits. As I understand it, Maksim, you are looking for big network realized profit spikes as prices rise, and we're just not seeing that at the moment.
Yeah. So if we imagine we take our basic scenario, which we now, or I consider this will break 83,000 on the way up, and we don't see spikes in network realized profit loss, I will be really concerned. Take into account we have already what part of concerns is meme coins, and if this doesn't change, so people not taking profits or moving coins which are theoretically in losses, yeah, the combination of two, lack of worry and excitement with meme coins would make it troublesome. For now, I still think we can go about 83K.
Gotcha. Then from an exchange flow perspective, supply and exchanges are staying pretty flat at the moment. Not much to report there. Social dominance has been surprisingly flat for Bitcoin. Maybe a slight uptick today, but within its range. So not talked about any more than usual. RSI is sitting just below that 50 mark, so still just slight undervaluation going on. And then total holders, it actually looks like retail has been buying this dip pretty dramatically. I mean, it's actually gone up significantly since February 18th over these past 7-ish weeks or so. There's a net difference of 457,600 more BTC wallets with coins in them compared to the 7-week ago mark. So yeah, this is the highest ever, 54.86 million non-empty wallets. It doesn't look like retail is shying away right now. So that could put a cap on how much our rally can be, considering retail is still believing that crypto can rise and are kind of stocking up and expecting another surge. And we don't want them to expect another surge. We want them to be very fearful right now. And that can help us transition into a few of these social queries that I preloaded. One being the overall talk about tariffs. We've seen how they've been dropping over time. This is natural after the big news happens. It actually was technically here, and the conversations peaked on April 9th when we were seeing a lot of retaliation between US and China. But even with today's retaliation, not a lot of talk, with China bumping up the US tariffs to 125%. Now, the overall mentions of low or lower or high or higher. Yeah. I'll actually take off the Bitcoin end so we get a bigger sample size. We'll just look at all the mentions because it's going to be related to both stocks and crypto this way.
Okay.
So this is showing there is a bias toward higher right now. It does look like the crowd is getting a bit greedy. That's why these red tips are sticking up significantly higher than the blue tips. And they've been this way actually for about 24 hours now. Other than right here, there was a little bit of a fear signal, but pretty much most of these 2-hour bars are filled with more bullish expectations than bearish expectations. So that's not ideal. We want to see a lot more blue tips sticking out like we saw on this dip on the 6th.
Yep.
And then similarly, we can look at actual price calls for Bitcoin. So something a little more specific toward crypto. There have been a few more mentions of lower prices. This is kind of contrary to what the lower or higher chart was showing. And yeah, for the most part, we've been seeing people calling for lower Bitcoin, and obviously they've been punished on this rally, and it hasn't changed. We're still seeing people calling for lower Bitcoin. The last time we saw higher Bitcoin was really right at this top on April 9th when we got that temporary surge after the 90-day pause. So yeah, this was the greed signal, and we've been seeing fear signals ever since. So a bit contrary to what we're seeing on the high or low chart, but I still like the fact that lower calls are coming in. This is telling me that retail is kind of selling a bit on this rise and just taking small profits. As for trending tokens, we already talked about the top caps being dominant. The trending words, as you would suspect, China, CPI and IRS, which I'll get to in a second, Bitcoin trading, gold, which we should mention is continuing to make new all-time highs at the moment because people are fearful of trade wars or full-on wars still. And when that happens, there's economic uncertainty and more people stocking up in tangible safe havens, things that are always going to have value, even if currencies are being threatened. For example, the dollar being below 100.0 right now is a big deal. So that's going to push people to buy gold and silver and other safe haven commodities. But yeah, as far as the CPI, this has been vastly overshadowed by all the tariff news, but we did have an update on the CPI report where the March CPI fell to 2.4%, which was lower than expected, leading to speculation about rate cuts. And that would, of course, be great news for the crypto markets, at least temporarily. Whenever there are rate cuts, that tends to benefit crypto. If there are rate hikes, that tends to hurt crypto. So this essentially, the trading crowd believes that because of the lower than expected CPI, that's going to force the Fed's hands, especially because the stock markets have been crushed as much as they have been. I'd be a little bit skeptical of the Fed just doing what the trading crowd thinks they should do. They always have their own, formula for making the decisions they make in terms of rate hikes and rate cuts. I wouldn't be so sure just yet, but we'll see as we get closer to the FOMC meetings what they're thinking. And right now, maybe we'll check out, what Polymarket thinks in terms of hikes and cuts and how they're speculating the chances are. But right now, I'm going to assume that they're going to do nothing because that's been the common trend since December. Do you have any thoughts about the CPI or anything related to this data?
No, I don't think they will do anything because now they need to measure and see what will happen next month based on the current tariff decisions. Because obviously, this will come later.
Yeah, great. So we're in agreement on that.
Yeah.
And the IRS also is an interesting topic. So
yeah, why?
Trump.
Is it the time now to give a tax return form? Like April?
Yeah. So in the US, the deadline for filing taxes is in 4 days, April 15th. So any Americans watching, make sure to take care of that. The IRS has not been eliminated. There are rumors that Trump is trying to get rid of them, but the IRS still very much exists, and they will go after you if you're not paying your taxes. So make sure to do so. But yeah, it looks like the latest on the IRS is there is a repeal on an IRS rule affecting DeFi platforms, and it eliminates the requirement for DeFi platforms to report user data to the IRS. So I think this was an ongoing topic we've seen over the last month. I saw this news in late March where there is no longer a necessity to report DeFi earnings, which is actually pretty interesting. It means if you're on DeFi and you're worried about having to report what you've been doing, you no longer need to, because he's signed a resolution to repeal that IRS rule. But if you're on a centralized exchange like Coinbase or something else, that does not apply to this rule. All right. Other than that, Maksim, I don't have too much more. I did want to mention this. We talked about the 10-year US Treasury yields.
Yep.
Seeing a huge spike in conversation right now. You may know a little more about this topic than me. Do you want to quickly expand on that?
Why is it growing? Yeah, well, probably speculators still don't give up on an idea that in the scope of US versus China fight, China will stop or will start officially selling US treasuries. And then, of course, when your sale price go down and the yield goes up. So this was already visible before Trump announced, okay, let's put on a pause tariffs. Because if even you collect more money, but yield on your debt grow 1%, I think it expenses on maintaining the debt is even more than before.
Yes.
And definitely unsustainable. So, but you know the market, once they feel the blood, it doesn't let go so easily. Or maybe China did start selling. You never know, yeah. Or at least I don't know. I don't know the details. But this is a big topic, yeah. Big topic in terms of escalating of the war. So it might push, indeed, in a sense, if it remains as high, it might push Trump to be more cooperative for some time. Which could give a push for the market, yeah, possible.
Interesting. Yeah, so this is an ongoing development, and it's still gaining more and more social volume as today goes on. So we'll watch this one closely. We also see a mild spike happening with whales, as especially Ethereum whales have been apparently taking advantage of price drops to accumulate large amounts of ETH. It's always a tricky thing to actually measure how much Ethereum whales are accumulating due to all of the DeFi and staking kind of skewing the data. But yeah, it appears to be mostly related to Ethereum and a little bit of increased Bitcoin whale talk. And our data is showing that they do seem to be accumulating or at least staying flat, depending on which tiers you're talking about.
Yep.
Paris Blockchain Week also is happening this weekend, so that's getting a bit of an uptick in discussion as well. So those are the three big spikes we've been seeing over the past 24 hours or so. Michael Saylor also getting some talk a couple days ago.
Yeah, but now he has some relief.
Yes.
But still, the risk for him and MicroStrategy to get liquidated in this bear cycle is not out of the table. It could be postponed, but the risk is quite high.
Yeah, every time Bitcoin starts getting into those mid 70K levels, the discussions about his liquidation possibility starts to rise.
Which would be, in a sense, a good sign. All major bear markets, at least the last one, was a cascade of liquidations, and they marked the bottom, I think 2 weeks after. Here could be the same.
Right.
But of course, I have not vision it, neither sell nor MicroStrategy. It's a strong indicator, but I hope we'll build the bottom with something else. It's quite a lot of pain, yeah.
Yes, we are in agreement.
Yeah.
All right, brother Max. Well, I think that will wrap it up. Heading into the weekend, guys, obviously any tariff news is going to lead everything else, everything we showed is based on what we know now. But if, Trump comes out and says there's been a new development, especially a big one, that's going to completely change the trajectory of where we stand. So be ready for that. And in the meantime, of course, just stay safe. Do not invest things that you are unable to lose. That's a given. And it's just unprecedented times right now, and we'll continue to keep you updated when more clarity comes forward.
Correct. Yeah.
Thanks for joining, Maksim. Always a pleasure catching up with you, my friend.
Yeah. Talk to you next week.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.